Well, shalom and welcome to the Parsha Noach course. We're going to take a look at the 7 different Aliyahs that composite the Parsha, and we're going to start with Genesis 6:9, and we're going to run all the way through the Tower of Babel and a little bit about the birth of Abraham and his moving from Ur of the Chaldeans to Haran. This is Aliyah 1. It starts on Genesis 6, verse 9 to 22. While society as a whole descended into a state of anarchy and utter corruption, only Noah remained righteous and faithful to God's ways. Noah was informed by God that a flood was coming and it would destroy all of civilization. And only Noah and his immediate family would survive in a big boat, we like to call it an ark, that Noah had to build. Well, God gave him the exact dimensions, how to make the thing, what wood to use, etc., etc. And then he was told to get every species of animal and insect and birds, so that when the flood was over, they could repopulate the species. He also had to stock the ark with like a year's worth of food for all the inhabitants. Now in Aliyah 1, the author tells the story of the spread of sin and evil that was upon the earth. And God finally said, enough of this, I got to do something about it. Now the sage Rashi explains that it was a lot of violence. Well, that's what the Torah says, but he says it refers to robbery. Robbery being rampant during this period. Several other books, which are of interesting note, explain, the thieves got no material benefits from their thefts. And the authorities of the time imposed a limit on how much people could steal before they were being punished. Does sound familiar in certain states today, and I shouldn't have said that probably. But therefore, when you tell people they could steal up to $1,000 and not go to jail, guess what? They're going to steal up to $1,000. An interesting thing about the ark is that it only had one window. So the ark would have been pretty much dark, especially during the days of rain. Noah and his sons are allegorically the light of the Lord in the ark. The Lord's Shekinah, and that is his essence on earth, needed to be in the ark in order to keep the carnivores from eating the other animals. Since Noah and his sons attended to the needs of the animals, they allegorically brought the Lord's presence into the ark. We can view the 3 sons of Noah as the 3 powers of the universe, the positive, negative, and the neutral. They built the entrance of the ark to go within the 3 decks of the ark. And when the door was open, it was possible to reach any of the 3 levels. The 3 powers of the universe, as I mentioned, positive, negative, and neutral, were accessible to Noah and his family. Inside the ark, these 3 powers were balanced, as they were when God created the universe. Using Semitic Bible study methods, we like to take a look and ask questions. Now, I gave you some of the culture right there. Let me hit a few of the verses and questions. Like, what does it mean that Noah walked with God? Noah endeavored to do everything the Lord expected of him. He acted righteously. He stayed away from the depravity of his day. And the sages believe that Noah became righteous out of fear for the justice that was coming. Okay, well, I can't blame him for that, because Noah was able to sense that the other folks of his generation were not acting the way the Lord wanted them to. And he must have determined in his head one day God was going to come down and smash all the evil. In verse 11, it says, in this chapter 6, verse 11, what does it mean that the earth became corrupt before the Lord? Well, the Lord showed the difference between Noah and the rest of humanity. Noah combined the two virtues of being loyal to the Lord. He was righteous, and he tried to help his fellow human to rid themselves of evil. There's always been a question about what was gopher wood. You find that in verse 14, and it is believed that gopher wood is actually cypress wood. The dimensions of the ark are given to us in cubits. Well, how long is a cubit? Well, you start with your elbow and you measure up to your middle finger. That's a cubit. So your cubit is probably different in length than my cubit. But of course, Noah, being the guy who directed the building of the ark, obviously they went by his cubit length. There's information available like how long was the ark? Approximately 510 feet. How tall was it? Probably about 50 feet from the ground. Lots of cargo space. When you think about the ark, there's 3 decks I do want to mention. And it's believed the lowest deck was for all the waste product. Because remember, they just didn't have a toilet back then. They didn't have a window to throw it out. The next level would have been for the animals. And then the top level would have been for Noah, his family, sons, daughters, and all the food stock. Now, there are a lot of midrashes out there that deal with this. And we want to take a look at our spiritual awareness that we can get out of this. Now, first yield of Noah's labor was that he was a righteous person. And that should be the goal of every human being. You want to be a righteous person. So when the Lord looks at you, he sees righteousness. Life is a journey to spiritual perfection. Noah was a righteous person living in an evil world. He could stay righteous even with all that surrounding pressure. And there's so much of it today because we live in a very evil world. Righteousness is something that is obtained by not bending to the evil of the world. Stand up to society if you feel what they're pushing on you is wrong. But definitely don't do it. You know, Midrash talks all about how old Noah was, and it says 500 years. But I got to tell you culturally that people were using a monthly calendar instead of a yearly calendar when they wrote this story. You have to divide by 12 to get the actual years. It is important, let me also know, for us to realize we can become corrupt and sinful if we don't have God's law and especially God's Torah with us. That's how you stay righteous. Genesis does not offer any kind of laws for humans to follow. This shows that humanity needed a basis for their laws and regulations. Why do we need laws? Read Genesis. The best government on the earth is based on the laws of the Torah, especially the 10 Commandments. You know, over time, numerous governments base their laws on the 10 Commandments. Politicians today, especially in the U.S., they're creating laws that have nothing to do with the basis of the Torah or the 10 Commandments. You know, we have one state in the United States that now says the government can take your children away because they don't like the way you're raising them. That's crazy. The laws of the country, if it wants to survive, need to be based on God's laws. Now, there is a book that I have produced. It's at you probably saw it in the ads or on the page that you've reached this video on. I have created 7 books, one for each Aliyah, but I also have one book for all 7. I suggest you get all 7 if you're going to continue in this class. There are legends in the book, the Talmud entries, the Midrash entries. I even have a whole piece on Zohar, which is the secret work. Let me close by saying people in this time frame of Noah were stealing from each other, and the law allowed it to a certain point. That needs to stop. My opinion, it's wrong. When city district attorneys are letting people out on the street after committing some horrific crimes just to do it again, people of that city need to evaluate who they're electing to these offices. Do they really want these progressive people that are allowing muggers and killers and whatever on the street? Because it's starting to look like Noah's day. I know some of you are going to stop listening because I'm not progressive, I'm not liberal, I'm a moderate in the middle. And I believe that stealing is wrong, hurting people is wrong, and breaking laws are wrong. If you don't like a law, get it changed. But you have to decide that for yourself. So God bless you. I'm going to stop here. There's a lot more in the book. God bless you for listening. And as always, Shalom.